Good. Yes.
Does everybody have their shots now?
Yeah,
I'm just wondering. I get my second one next week.
I don't have mine.
All right.
it
I'm
feels
so
good.
happy. I'm very excited. I'm
All
going
right.
to Hilton Head. I'm going to Hilton Head, Barry. Next month, I'm going to Hilton Head
For your
3
second one?
days.
For your second
No.
shot?
No, in April, I made a reservation at this resort in Hilton Head for 3 days and 3 nights. And I'm going to use this spa and
Ooh.
hydrate,
Okay, so you
and
know, we
facial,
are
and
live.
lay on the beach
We're online.
and have dinner
Yeah.
with Barry, but he doesn't know that yet.
All right, well, now
let you know later.
everyone
No,
on Facebook
Facebook
does
knows.
know that. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone. Oh, I forgot. Are we live now?
Yes,
That's great.
Niles thinks, yeah. Okay. Welcome everyone to our March open mic, sponsored by the Pat Conroy Literary Center in partnership with the South Carolina Writers Association. My name is Vivian Bikulege. I'll be trying to herd cats this evening, and we have a wonderful group of writers, and we'll feature Mr. Niles Reddick there at the very end of our evening. So really pleased to have everyone here, and thanks for making time to share your work with all of us. Real brief, quick announcement. I'll just say this real quick. The next open mic in April is April the 8th. And next month is Poetry Month. Brooke McKinney will be hosting, and you'll have the Ashram, I never say it correctly, the Ashram Poets, led by Emily Davis Fletcher. And so if you've never read poetry before, bring a piece of poetry and join us then. And everything else is welcome as well, but in celebration of Poetry Month, we'll have that group. So we've got quite a few people this evening. I really would like to ask that we honor the 3 minutes. Last month, we kind of went over and we're starting a little late. So please do your best to be courteous and adhere to the 3-minute time. So June is not with us this evening. She's not feeling so well. So, and Susan Cushman, I don't see Susan. So guess what, Tim? That was number 3. So you get to kick us off.
Wow, I'm glad my wife didn't ask me to pop something into the oven or something like that. I told her I'm 3rd. So if you need me for about 10 minutes, you got me. So I'm glad she didn't need me.
Okay, we are too. We're glad you're there.
My printer is acting up today, and I don't know why. And I know that reading from your computer is a little tough when it's Zoom. So if you don't mind, I'm going to have to do it from my phone. But I think it was at Catherine's house that I first read the initial draft of this little flash story. I think it was at your house, Catherine. It's called Anniversary. Oh, that's right. You're all muted, aren't you? Yeah. Okay. My fault. With 3 kids, I'm still not all that experienced at the Zoom thing. But I'm going to read you the shortest story of the 18 in my new collection called Weeding for Eisenhower, that's coming out in late May. 15 of the stories are more standard length for me. I'm relatively new to Flash, but there are 3 Flash pieces. And Vivian, I promise this is the shortest one in the book at 700 words.
You're fine.
So, okay. All right. Here we go. This story is called Anniversary. I stared at him. He averted his eyes, of course, locked his eyes on his penny loafers, the old black ones with the worn out heels. That's what cowards and lousy dads and unfaithful husbands do. They hide their eyes in their shoes when they lie. The thing about saying he had sent me flowers lots of times, baby, when I can count to 2 perfectly well and I know how to stop if something never gets to 3, is that he had the chance to say he never bought her flowers. Not once, he could have said. Because she isn't you, baby, he could have said. She could never be you because There's only one you, baby, and there ain't a candle in the world she could hold next to you. But he didn't say that. He said, but Emma, I've sent you flowers too, like lots of times, and I love you. It was just an accident, a one-time thing. Please, you shouldn't feel bad. It wasn't your fault. And then he averted those eyes and looked at those shitty old shoes, and I knew it wasn't an accident. So I decided to go see this girl, this new baby, whose address was put on the sender lines by the florist instead of on the recipient ones. Lonnie, some kind of redneck name, probably short for Lonette or some such. Bless her heart, she didn't know about me, I'm sure. Sort of like that Amber Fry woman that was so enamored with that lizard named Scott Peterson. Anyways, so I get to 249 Travers Lane and take the deepest breath of my life. I push the doorbell and it ding-dongs inside, and I think about running away like a kid on a prank. But I stand there, all resolute, and wait, surprised by my courage, or maybe disgusted that I even care about a woman who jumps right in the sack just because an uninspired man like my husband sends her flowers. So the door opens and there's this man, this poor sap, who clearly doesn't know about the fling his wife is having with my husband. Or maybe he did. He had a sad look on his face. His mustache looked wet, sort of like he'd been crying. Still, I said I wanted to talk to Lonnie right freaking now. A dark expression entered his eyes. I'm Lonnie, he said. I stared at him. What did you say? I'm Lonnie, he said. And you're Emma. Well, I tell you honestly, I was speechless. I gathered my strength and took an even deeper breath than the one 30 seconds ago. When I spoke, I knew my life was going to change forever. Lonnie, are you in love with my husband? Lonnie stood there. He looked in my eyes like he was searching for something. I don't know whether he found it, but then he spoke, almost in a whisper. Emma, I know who you are. I took a step back. No, I said, you don't. Emma, we miss Janie. Today's the anniversary. You know that. The poor man was crazy. Don't you see he was crazy? I decided to leave. I almost made it down the steps. Emma, it wasn't your fault. I stopped and turned around on the bottom porch step. We believe that, Emma. We know that. We really do. You know, Barb and I always take pictures of the flowers from you and Bob. Every year we take pictures. We pretend the flowers live forever with us. It means a lot. We forgave you a long time ago, Emma. It happens every day in America. Janie ran out for the ball and you tell your wife to leave my husband alone, I said. He was a clueless sack, changing the subject like that. Emma, please, you've got to see someone. Tell your wife to stay away from my husband or I will kill her. What kind of name is Lonnie for a woman anyway? I got him good on that one. He was married to a floozy who couldn't leave the neighborhood men alone. He looked down at his shoes just like my husband. I'm sorry, so sorry, it just popped up here. Phone, great. I am so sorry. Couldn't leave the neighborhood men alone. He looked down at his shoes just like my husband. He was a defeated man. I could go now. As I stepped over the curb to cross the street and walk the 4 blocks back to our corner of Spruce and Travers, I felt sorry for the poor man. He just didn't know about his wife. I've heard it said if she'd been a better mother, their daughter would still be alive. Sure, they can sit there and eat their Cheerios together every morning, but they're over. Bob and I, though, will recover because That's what full-on love does. It comes back. It remembers the good things. It forgets Lonnie, just like it forgets bad mothers who don't keep their Janies in the yard. Love roars back, sending bunches and bunches of flowers. And it will not be interrupted by memories of bad things.
Wow. Thank you, Tim. That was powerful. That was powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That
Well
was,
done.
that was the first flash story I ever wrote. And I had not had any idea how much self-discipline it takes to write a flash piece. I'm looking for Niles is the prolific flash writer, okay, but he'd probably written 100 before I wrote one. I have really never been anywhere but between 2,000 and 6,000, occasionally more. And this was I finished it faster than I thought, and then I went to edit it. The writers in the room, know all about that. And I left it as it was. It's just one of those stories that says, here, go here, and you follow it here, even though it's not really where you thought it was going to go when you started it. So I had fun with it.
Thank you. Yeah, Niles, you want to say?
It's a powerful one, Tim, and I
Thank you.
love hearing you read it. I've read all of them in the collection, and they're all wonderful, but these little ones really do pack a powerful punch.
They sure can. Yeah, they sure can. And I don't think that I'm really going to write many of them. There are 3 that have been published in 3 different places, Flash Fiction Magazine, places like that. As a matter of fact, this one was published in Flash Fiction Magazine. And I remember thinking, maybe I'll write a bunch of flash stories, and sure enough, the next idea I get ends up 4,000 words, and that's the end of that. But I have done 3, 2 of them on purpose. Going to Catherine's that day, this one was, for those of us who remember procrastinating in college, this one was for a luncheon at Catherine's house for the WOW writers, not long after we had done a story writing workshop at my house for 13 weeks. And everybody was to bring a piece of 750, I think 750 or under, Catherine. And the night before, it's like, oh, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't go have lunch tomorrow because I haven't done it. So then after doing this one, I thought, well, the next time I write a flash story, it's going to go like that. I'll just wait till the last second and write it. No, it takes huge self-discipline, and I only got lucky with this one. This was a 1 draft. My other 2 flash pieces have probably been 4 or 5 pass-throughs.
Well, thank you,
Did you
Tim.
start that at 11 o'clock the night before?
I did, yeah, and in bed actually. It's the one story I've ever written on a phone. I opened up my notes function.
Oh, no.
Opened up the notes function and wrote it, in a new notepad on the phone, because I had said I would not only be there, but that I would bring something to read, and I'd never written a flash piece, but trust me, they don't all come easy like that. But this one did. The other 2 flash pieces that I've written did not come easy, and both of them I had to cut a good 400 words to get under what that magazine was looking for. What's that?
Is Janie the narrator's daughter?
No, it's Lonnie and his wife's daughter, Emma. Emma struck her when she ran out in the road, and
Right.
Emma over the years apparently has had a lot of trouble dealing with it. We note that her husband's not there, and I'm the author, and I do not know what that means.
Mhm.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, thank you. As a
you.
matter of fact, we're gonna let Catherine follow you as Yeah, you're following Tim for, so.
Thank you, Vivian.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay. Here we go. Actually, this is flash fiction and it just comes from a writing practice. It's extremely raw, has not been edited, but here it goes. Okay. It started with a lie. Why, she later wondered, did she not just tell him the truth? All she had to say was, no, I've never been married. But that seemed so ordinary. The wrinkled face of the old maid in her childhood deck of cards popped up. At what age did an unmarried woman become an old maid? Just 6 months before, she'd eaten her birthday breakfast at the Keeneland Racecourse kitchen. Best grits in the world. She ordered them there so often. The hefty, round-faced cook just said, the usual, when he saw her tray sliding toward him. Yep, she'd smile back, beginning to salivate for 2 orders of grits with extra butter. Oh my. So she was 36. Her mother certainly defined that as old maid status. Last time she'd visited, her mom whined, you'll never get married, you're too picky. I'll never get any 2-legged grandchildren. Though the comment had cut her to the quick, she zipped back a naughty reply and left the room. 36 seemed too old not to have been married, so instead of telling him the easy truth, she pulled a tired, sad face and said, yes, my husband died in a car crash on our first anniversary. How awful that must have been for you. His voice radiated sympathy. Tears filled her eyes and began to streak her cheeks. She'd always been able to bring them forth in an instant. It had served her well as the youngest of 5 kids, the others all boys. He kissed the damp from first one cheek, then the other. Her arms slid around his neck. He scooped her up, placed her gently on the bed, and they made luscious love for hours. What a first date, she later thought. By the time she rectified the lie, he didn't care. There you go.
Wow. I was ready to be more into the luscious love, Catherine.
Sorry, Vivian, not in this story. Sorry to disappoint.
Yeah, I wanted that to be more than flash.
Keep
It's a
flashing.
different kind of flash.
Very nice. This is fun. This is fun. Thank you. Thank you both. Okay, so we're going to follow this with Robin Monroe. I don't know, and I never know, Robin, I don't know if it's poetry, young adult. So what are you going to grace?
Here we go. Well, I've been just practicing a lot of writing, a lot of beginnings. This is the beginning of a story, and it's for big people, not children. So I'm just doing a lot of practicing right now. So here and there, a branch would rustle and a scarlet leaf would rock to the ground. Molecules of air slowly parted to let it find its place among thousands of other leaves that had nestled together, waiting for winter. There were times when I would have stopped to capture the leaf's descent, but I knew that capturing it in the stillness of a photo would leave out the beauty of its graceful fall. Be the same when I captured the crossbill I had followed into the forest. My friends said that I was obsessed with getting a shot of one. I was focused, that's for sure. Today, I could feel every cell of me stretching towards this raspberry-feathered creature. The longing I felt made a sore spot just under my sternum in that deep place that registers purpose. My hiking boots mushed into the leaves, taking me a step at a time deeper into the moist softness as I followed the birds kip, kip, kip around wet rocks and through underbrush that sometimes pulled at my ankles. Vines and branches grabbed me, trying to stop me. I felt their resistance, but I didn't look down, afraid I would miss the pinkish red blur of wings that meant I was close. This one was shy. It would stop to peek at me through buttery maple leaves or through a veil of viridian pine needles. Rosy feathers, soft against vibrant green, was breathtaking. When he perched, I would stop and slowly raise my camera, but before the shutter could click, he would be off again. Each time I was sure I'd hit the jackpot, and each time put me more in debt as I went deeper and deeper into the shadows. A cold wind slapped me in the face and forced me to look around. Oh God, trees, everywhere trees. An occasional patch of graying sky told me that it would be dark soon. What was I thinking? I knew better. I strained to see where the sun was setting so I could get my bearings, but it was already too dark. I searched for lichens on tree trunks, but there weren't enough to give me a definitive north. All that was left for me to do was find a place to shelter. Up ahead was a large boulder with an indentation big enough to cup me out of the wind. I cut as many branches as I could with the pocket knife I always carried, then pulled them over me like a scratchy blanket. The thick darkness stuck to me like molasses. That sore place in my chest ached as I heard kip, kip moving further and further away in the distance.
You're taking both this month and last month was more of a nature. Yeah. And it's very poetic, Robin. And I like the idea of purpose in the writing. So that was very beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good luck with this new exploring that you're doing.
It's fun. I'm having fun.
It's always fun to do new stuff like flash fiction. Okay, thanks. So that takes us to Brad Beck, who's always experimenting with music and poetry. So hi, Brad.
Hi, Vivian. Thank you. Thank you. I have a poem tonight inspired by a traumatic experience that maybe a youthful guy might have. And I just want to say up front, any resemblance to an experience I might have had is purely coincidental. It's called The Crush. The dance floor, a forbidding abyss, bottomless, wide, inky black. A cauldron of swarming serpents and man-eating monsters lurked, out of sight in its depths. The music from the record player was thin, echoing faintly off the cinder block walls, the songs tempting him to make the crossing. Lights in the gym dimmed, soft profiles through the thin light veil. Girls sitting on one side, boys on the other. Basketball backboards disturbed by the intrusion. A spotlight seemed to focus on only him. Certainly, everyone was watching. Sure, the girls were whispering, snickering about him. Did he put on the socks without the hole tonight? Was his fly unzipped? Were his new bell bottoms too short? They saw the same cyclops that had stared at him in the bathroom mirror. The glowing redness and tightening of the skin, tender to the touch. His nose, a zit incubator. Why now? Would she ever dance with him? Pubescent desire overcame fear. He stood up, touched his nose where he could feel his heart pounding. She strolled onto the dance floor with his best friend.
Oh. I was thinking, is that a Valentine's poem there for a minute? And then we had a whole nother concept of red. So that was Brad, it's been
That's real life. That's real life.
And
Thank goodness
Brad,
that
if it's
didn't-
any consolation to you at all, I had the same kind of experience multiple times.
Oh, beautiful. Absolutely sad, sad and beautiful.
Yeah, I relate to the Cyclops image. That's we all do.
Yeah, it was always there right before a dance, right?
Right, exactly.
Agreed.
The prom, graduation, it's the third head. Or the second head, maybe the third. Okay, Miho, I don't know how you're going to follow a Cyclops, but I have a feeling it's going to be way different.
Yeah, so I'm going to read a poem. I started writing in English creatively about 20 years ago. And the first class I took was on the website. It's called writers.com. And I think it is the oldest continuing online writing class, ever. And I'm still a friend with the people. And I was honored to be asked to contribute to the anthology of spring poems. So I was writing this one. Migration. Because you felt better after the blood test, we drove to downtown. Turning down Liberty, we waited for the pedestrians to cross. Above us, birds fluttered between a palmetto and a palmetto. I said, cedar waxwings. They are busy. That's how I know who they are. They act as if being chased by a big shadow under the blue, blue sky, as if they intercepted my thought, one by one, on cascading beats, picked a spot on the branches of a large gum tree, still a bare tree. Their buzzing calls that sound like an electric shield also ceased. They stayed still, still, still. I counted my heartbeats. How much longer? The tree was too tall for me to see their colors, and we had to move on. But as I shifted in my seat, I saw with my mind's eye the dashing black around the eyes, blondish crest, lemon yellow hemmed tail, and red droplets on their wings like melted wax. The details are a disclosure. Each body 1 ounce of divination. Swinging through the spring air, I turn to you, and the sun is on your knuckles on the wheel. Thank you.
Yay. Yay, I love the recurring, the blood test, the blood, the red on the wings, divination and disclosure, just really beautiful imagery. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's so nice to listen to you. I think everyone here is, you kind of get lulled into the beauty of the writing. So, thanks, Miho. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Very beautiful. And so we got to move from that lull to Miss McKinney, but I don't see her there. So I don't know if she's hiding or can hear me, or she'll come back. Okay, 1, 2, 3. We'll come back to Brooke. Okay. Estelle, can I call on you, please, to do some reading for us, please? Oh, almost. I see that mute button coming. You're still muted. Oh, Sue.
How about that?
That's perfect.
Hey, I can learn.
Very good.
Susan Mccartney, please excuse me. I'm going to read something I read with some changes yesterday in another group. And some of you have heard this. It's a memoir, personal memoir. What Happened is the name of it. How old was I? 6, 8. My mother and I were in a large cemetery, soft hills dotted with monuments, tall pine trees and fragrant red cedar trees growing out of the North Georgia soil. It must have been summer or spring, as I don't remember any weather requiring umbrellas or coats in this vast resting place cut through with car lanes. I was reading age at least, as my eyes rested on words that sent a charge through my whole body. A headstone read, Frank Vincent Jackson. That was my uncle's name. But Frank, my uncle, my mother's youngest sibling, was alive. He and his older brother operated a bakery not far from there in Rossville on the edge of Chattanooga. I'd been a flower girl in Frank and Fran's wedding, and they had a couple of small boys. He wasn't dead. I ran to my mother and brought her to the monument. That's Papa, she said a little sadly. That's your grandfather. He died a long time ago. I wasn't much for connecting dates, so the numbers on the stone didn't mean much. The scare took a while to leave my body that day. Often there was something to be afraid of about afraid about when I was a child. So this disturbance lay on me like quilts on the brass bed I sometimes shared with my grandmother Cleo. Throughout my childhood, Frank, my grandfather, was this striking, handsome man in a three-piece black suit and white tie. I saw him only in his portrait, a profile of a man in his 20s with dark, wavy hair, a carefully groomed mustache, and a strong chin. Cleo's picture alongside him there on the wall of my mother's bedroom showed a rounded figure in her 50s or 60s, wearing a dark church dress with a modest brooch. Her eyes crinkled in a kind smile, the way I remember her. As she lived her last 20 years with us when I was growing up, they were always this couple, forever separated in time. While I had no awareness of it in those days, I was witnessing the family torn in two by a tsunami of events that had a rough parallel to today. By the time her picture was taken, Cleo had long ago lost Frank and raised their 8 children, 4 boys and 4 girls, on her own. My grandfather died in 1923, leaving 9 people with no support. The youngest child, Frank Jr., was 1.5. My Aunt Clara was 5 and my mother was 9. The tragedy set the family on a search for stability that lasted well into the 50s. My grandmother said the family fell ill not long after she and Frank walked to hear a preacher they liked at a local church. Cleo's relatives included some of the first Methodist clerics in Georgia, so spending time inside the warm walls of a chapel was not unusual. The couple's home at that time was between Fort Oglethorpe, where soldiers were just returning from World War I, and the city of Chattanooga. The virus wafted northward from the post, across Missionary Ridge, and down into the city. Military posts were found to be accelerators of the virus, which targeted younger people, and the stricken were treated in local hospitals. Chattanooga suffered 400 deaths before the pandemic was over. While the family mostly recovered, it took Frank, who was 48, a long while to return to work. 4 years later, they had an 8th child. Frank became a laborer, handling huge steel beams to make railroad bridges in an open yard. The exposure led to pneumonia, and he died. I think that's time, isn't it? One more paragraph. I'm in awe of how the family made it at a time when there was no welfare, no food stamps, no safety net, or subsidized housing. Also, these locations had no community water, no electricity, no mass communication such as radio. And there had been an earlier financial setback when the family lost its large farm shortly after Frank and Cleo married. So there was no land to fall back on. Cleo was devastated at the loss of her love, but set about using whatever they had to survive these multiple tragedies.
Yeah, that's really, really powerful, Estelle. And this is a really significant anniversary today, 1 year since the World Health Organization declared this a global pandemic. So that's a very timely reading and in another time. And I appreciate how you bring us to, the communication, what they didn't have, and look at us together this evening.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much for that reading. That was perfect for tonight. Thanks.
Thanks for your suggestions. Your suggestions were very good.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay. Thank you, Estelle. Barry Dixon, can you take us out of the pandemic into, I don't know what this means, but take us somewhere.
Here we go, wherever it is. How about some flash nonfiction?
Oh, okay.
It's a new category. I think most people out there have heard some of my micro memoirs, but I see a face or two maybe that I should explain to. I have a collection of very short, true stories from my life called Micro Memoirs. The title is Barry Who? 33 Unforgettable Micro Memoirs from Someone You Never Heard of. And they're just real stories, real events, 2-3 pages. And every fourth one approximately, I like to put in a little one, like less than half a page at tops, just to break up the length. So I've put together a reading of the little ones. I have 4 here. 1, January 2009. Good old-fashioned American greed. The New York State Lottery reached $133 million. And of course, our office had its pool tickets. Every person in that group was intelligent enough to know they had virtually no chance of winning. Every person in that group fantasized about the money we were surely about to win. I would buy my mother a home in the suburbs, said Kevin. My husband and I would grab the kids and travel the world, said Michelle. I would take my money and go around the country fixing zoos, said Cheryl. I'd especially make room for the gorillas. There were a few beats of silence after that one. Then John Z. I would buy this company and fire myself so I could collect unemployment too. 2. February 1997. The quintessential Jewish mother. I was visiting my mother in her Fort Lauderdale condo. Mom was in the kitchen. I was in the living room. She called out, Barry, what do you want for dinner? Chicken or brisket? Chicken. What's the matter? You don't like my brisket? 3. Spring 1998. Typecast. Carlton, our co-worker, would let you know in no uncertain terms where your political opinions were completely wrong. He would also sigh condescendingly in company meetings when your viewpoint was not quite as sophisticated as, say, his. The day several of us revealed we still didn't know how to retrieve our cell phone messages, he clicked his tongue and declared, I'm surrounded by idiots. One Monday morning, Carlton showed up for the weekly status meeting with a cast on his hand. What happened? Deborah asked. Fall off your high horse? Take that, you pompous ass. 4, and finally, September 2014. Quick study. When I was 5, my father gave me a shiny new white golf ball. Maxfly, it said on the cover. I loved it. When I was 67, I was standing on the 18th fairway of Harbortown Golf Course, waiting for some guy to finish 4-putting so I could hit. I looked down at my ball. Another Maxfly. Suddenly, it occurred to me. Maxfly. It stands for maximum flight. Yes, Maxfly stands for maximum flight. It took me 62 freaking years to figure that out.
I don't know. We went from the lottery to brisket to sighing asses and to golf balls and your dad. That was great. Thank you, Barry. That was great.
Thank you.
That's all new. That's all new for us, I think. That's all
The
new.
little ones are new.
Yeah, they
I've
were
hardly read them at all.
well. Thank you for doing that this evening. Everyone was entertained, and
I actually had 5, but you yelled at us to make sure we don't go over it first. 3 minutes. So you can't get to find out what happened here.
okay, well, don't write any flash nonfiction about me, please. Okay, so hey, Miss Brooke, you're back. Would you be ready to go?
Yeah, I can go.
Okay, cool.
I'm just going to read a couple of poems. Sorry to follow Barry after this. This is very depressing, but I think I've read this poem before, but it was just published, so I'm going to celebrate and read it again. It's called The Glass Jar Blues. I keep an animal in a glass jar. You can see it rocking around, searching for air or one small wind. I have poked holes in the top so it can breathe, or just rise to the idea of breathing. I put leaves in the jar to make love exist into a stick so that it has hope to climb out of its infinite pain. There's enough water to crown the bottom of the jar so it may wet its feet, and there's a rock so it can sit and think. Anything trapped needs a place to think. I watch it struggle every day, trying to escape. I walk over to comfort it, tapping my finger on the glass and saying things like, "It's going to be fine. I know you are not happy, but you are safe." That's a Glass Jar Blues. And I was going to read two. Can I read another one?
Yes.
Okay. This isn't really a poem, I don't think. It's not like anything that I normally write, but I'm just going to read it anyway. It's one of those nights, so forgive me. It's called I Will Tell You. I will not tell you that you will be free of pain or that life is anything else than what it is. Metaphors grow old after a while, like rotting things. You see, I could have said pears, oranges, or anything, but I did not lie when I told you life isn't anything but what it is. I will not tell you that you will be free of pain. You will only need to prepare for it, like a dinner or vacation or wedding, a lost dog, or the love that comes in the night and is gone by morning. You will not be free of pain. You will not be free of anything. Life isn't anything but what it is. I have told you. I will tell you. I will tell you again what I have already said. Thanks. Sorry, it's really sad, I know.
It's okay. It was really, really beautiful. And we all appreciate your writing. I will tell you that. Thanks, Brooke. Susan Jean McCartney, good evening. Oh, you're on mute, sweetie. You're on mute.
I'm
Welcome.
live, right?
We're live.
Yeah. Okay, this is African stuff. This is another sketch of my African journey. November 14th, 2008. Into Africa I fly on a one-way ticket. Journey through 14 countries in 22 months on local transportation. Learn, rest, change. A woman without advantage of youth or money. The journey has many pieces. This is one. Day tripping. November 23rd, 2008. Shekaba, Tunisian oasis between pink rock mountains on the northern Sahara, 30 miles from Tuzair. Cheap hire of a four-wheeler in Tuzair. Young Berber driver decked in t-shirt and khakis. His long legs jam against the dash to straddle the steering wheel. Infectious grin turns on and off like electric light. He skids a Jeep off-road to play in scorched Sahara sand. Roars up a monster dune, teeters on flat lines of sky, plunges down. I yelp profanity. He howls laughter. Swerves on dry desert plain. Parks to wait near descent into Shekaba ravine. The wide, foot-worn path zigzags sun-sparked pink granite. Past the first sharp left, I meet a turbaned Berber coming up. Tall, thin as a pole. Winter gray toga flaps on long bones. He blocks the path, fixes black eyes on me, lone woman in black. I try a fleeting smile. His bearded chin juts. Are you married? No, I hardly hear my voice. His thin eyebrows raise, nostrils flare. You're not married? No, I back up half a step. Ah, his smile wide with knowledge. You are a virgin then? I look at him straight. Yes. Satisfied, he moves on. I do too, glad to be a good liar. The path angles right, hugs hot flat ledges. Narrow sheets of air ripple, lap at pink stone, air breathes cooler tones. Another turban Berber is walking up. Gray toga stretches over vast belly. Plain, broad face puffs red to carry his ample body. I hurry past, not fast enough. He reaches down, touches a single finger to my bare ankle. the only spot not covered by black, scuffles away. I go bare, keep going. The path curves left, loops, swerves, flattens. The ravine floor stretches out pink stone. A bright spring-fed stream leads to the abandoned village of Shekabah. I'm the only visitor. Crumbly stone and brick walls seem to wait quietly for life to reappear. Dusky green palms crowd solitude at purple pools. Slanted rocks rise, spill silver foam, rainbows mist, water symphonies splash, gush, burble, echo off mountain flanks. Live miracles bound by desert deadness. 8,000 years ago, all the Sahara is lush and green. A tilted orbit heats the land dry and dead. Evaporation traps pockets of rain. Roots survive to twist into ancient pockets. Hot sand sprouts miracles. I laze in palm shade on smooth time-worn boulders. Dangle bare feet in divine purple water. Float above myself. Dream miracles. A voice from nowhere or everywhere. I come to find you. You are down here a long time. I rummage through my dreams. A young man stands brightly lit on the shadeless side of the pool. He looks familiar, but like someone I haven't met. My driver giggles. Did you get lost?
Yes, Susan, this is the form of what you write is really interesting because it's like poetry with nonfiction braided, and it's you take us on quite a journey. So
I challenge anyone to find one syllable that's unnecessary in what Susan writes every time.
Way
Thank
to
you,
do
Mary.
that, Mary. That's excellent.
I'll buy dinner.
okay, we're still live, so that's as far
Oh,
as
that's
we
right.
can go. Okay. Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
Quite a journey you're taking us on. Thank you. Penny Ron, we haven't seen you in a long time. Do you have something that you want to share tonight?
I do. It's the only thing I've written in a year. I wrote it about a month ago.
Okay. Is it 3 minutes?
It may be 4.
Okay. All right. I think we
It's
can.
not real long.
All right. We'll be considerate. Here we go.
Thank you. I sat on a cold iron bench behind the dozen family members in a covered pavilion at the National Cemetery. I was there to honor a colleague I hadn't seen in over 20 years and to let the family know he was still loved and remembered, a presence in the hearts of many. I thought that was why I was there, and it was, but I was there for so much more. I inhaled deeply and gritted my eyes tightly shut so I wouldn't weep and moan with the grief that unexpectedly overwhelmed me. This man was not family or even a close friend. At 94, he was mourned, the family sad, but not bereft. Within 15 minutes, we were all back in our cars and driving away. My heart lingered there throughout the day. I sat in my car and gazed at the thousands of gravestones erected with military precision in painfully straight rows. Graves of warriors who marched and sailed and fought and died from the Civil War through 2 world wars to Korea and Vietnam and the endless war on terror. Graves of those who served a lifetime or just a hitch. Graves marked by dignity and solemnity. However, in my mind and on this day, those were not the stones marking over 150 years of death. I could almost read the names of those I knew who died this past year. Friends, family, the famous, and strangers who died and were denied the rituals of transition. Survivors left to mourn alone without the support of community. Words unspoken, songs unsung, touches of comfort forbidden, and hope omitted. Although no one intimately close to me died this year, I am grief-filled. 3 classmates with whom I graduated from high school died. One suddenly of an aneurysm, one of cancer, one of COVID. I saw them last 2 years ago at our 50th reunion. They were not close friends, but part of the collective memory of our youth. My cousin, only 63, died of ALS. I last saw him about 15 years ago at his mother's funeral, but we had shared many Thanksgivings and summers at the beach when my family would travel to Connecticut to my grandparents' home when I was growing up. There was no funeral for Jeff, no place to go, share laughter and tears and chicken salad with my dwindling family. A sympathy card was all I could offer. This summer, my friend Musa chose to stop fighting the disease that had plunged her into unending pain. She made her plans for her death and her peace with God. Within a few weeks of stopping dialysis, she was gone. Although she died in New York, she chose to be buried in Pennsylvania. Her husband, my friend and colleague Marty, had health issues of his own and could not go. Their daughter, a family friend serving as pastor, and a few former parishioners who lived in that parish in Pennsylvania stood by the graveside and formally marked her passing. On the 15th of December, Jean called. I had not heard her voice in almost 40 years. We met at church and encouraged each other through seminary. We lost touch when she moved to Michigan and became a chaplain, only reconnecting on Facebook a few years ago. She called to tell me she had just been diagnosed with inoperable cancer and wanted to let me know she had entered hospice. On Christmas Eve, a friend of hers posted that Jean had died that morning, not even 2 weeks later. In the past month, a colleague and friend died of a brain tumor. A seminary professor and friend died of COVID, his family only able to talk with him by phone. Then there was Wes, whose graveside service I attended. He was a colleague from the old Wyoming conference where I served for over 20 years. It too died about 10 years ago, ripped in two and swallowed up by larger conferences in New York and Pennsylvania. Those are the deaths that imprinted themselves on my personal pages this year. They were joined by those of the famous baseball players whose cards I collected out of bubblegum packs, and movie and TV stars who entertained me for decades. Hovering on the fringes of consciousness are over 500,000 souls unknown to me who have died in our country. As with anyone of a certain age, death has become more than an incidental occurrence or occasional stranger. Some days it feels as if the early chapters of my life are being shredded as the characters continue to check out and move on. Not to another chapter, but another volume which I cannot even preview. There are fewer and fewer with whom to reminisce. I cling tightly to the remnants of stories past, savoring past adventures, recapturing and reframing the true accounts, both tender and traumatic. I fear my life has been written in disappearing ink. In years to come, and someone opens the book of my life, will the pages be blank, my existence forgotten except by God? Selfishly, I hope that when my time to move on comes, there will be a new normal and folks will be able to gather to hug each other, share a few tears, laugh at some of my jokes, and collect a few remembrances to add to the books of their lives. I hope that celebrations of life will return, that my ashes will not be forgotten in a corner, that the final date be etched on my tombstone to mark a life completed. But today, as I remember all those I have lost, I sit with my sadness, let the tears flow, and listen for a whisper of hope.
Yeah, so Penny, that was really, really beautiful. The collective memory of our youth and the reminiscing and the reframing. I think you really honored all of your angels and us this evening. And if you don't keep writing and coming back, I'm going to be very angry with you. So thank you for that. It's again, it's a really timely piece for us tonight. So,
Thanks.
well, it was beautifully done. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jackie, Hello down there with your sunset or moon rising or.
It's the full moon, even though we're in the dark moon right now.
We are in the dark moon right now. That worm moon's a coming.
Yeah, Saturday, new moon. Well, as usual, I changed my mind moment by moment, and I thought we needed just a little bit of upbeat. So I've read this poem before, but interestingly, it was a year ago, because it's about time to start the poem a day again. And so it's about pandemic, but it's a little more on the upbeat. And it's not my usual style, because I did write it in response to a prompt, and it became kind of my rap song, my rap poem. Pandemic. Cross the ocean, the emotion and commotion calls on courage, holding light, can't take flight, can only act like a dervish in a flourish of motion, hoping for sleep and divine mercy, trying not to plunge too deep, holding fright in the night like a song with long, deep notes and sad words. Instead, evoke the moon, energies, and sun, sleep deep and sweep, and somehow focus on upkeep, or frankly, we may end up in a heap, and that would be sad. Sit in the sun, hum and sing, play the flute with long blue notes that contrasts with bright bird song. Maybe if we sing long enough, crows will rise out of the shadows and the alchemic effort will pay off. Here a red, red rose flourishes, and who knows, if divine mercy decrees, the pandemic will fade like a rose and bloom in our minds only as a distant memory.
Yay.
You're here. Let's do it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.
The alchemic effort. making joy out of sadness. Thanks, Jackie.
I was hearing a bass line while you were baseline and a beat while you were doing rhythm. It's very
Bass and B, okay.
Yeah, you put a bass line in there.
Okay, that'd be fun.
Someday we're all gonna get our bongos and our tambourine. We're gonna have we need to have
I was hearing Kerouac
very
when you read that time.
Oh.
I was hearing Kerouac.
Oh, thanks.
I just had to throw that in.
It was kind of fun.
Hey, I've got a question for Kathy Bradford before we take this into our closing readers. I don't know if Kathy wanted to read or she's just observing. Barry, you always help. No, she's just in our audience. So thank you so much, not only to Kathy, but to everyone that's attending and honoring us with your presence tonight. We're really glad to have you and have you listening. I'm going to read a short piece. It's nonfiction, and then I have the pleasure of introducing now. So here's my quick piece. Actually, it was a winner in the Sandberg Story Slam up here in North Carolina. So
congratulations.
Well, thanks. It was the topic was seasons, and you had to write something for the seasons. So this is called Bubbles, Leaves, and Birthday Candles, and it's in honor of Irene. When I was a child, I measured the change of seasons around my mother. Irene planted tulip bulbs like rows of springtime soldiers in front of our 4-bedroom suburban home. Red and yellow annuals at the ready to remind us of resurrection after cold and dreary Pennsylvania winters. In the 6th grade, I learned about cross-pollination and moved yellow dust from stamens to sticky pistils, streaking next year's buds like spilled paint, upsetting my mom's landscape aesthetic. Sometimes too much knowledge can change hope. One summer in a square green plastic pool in our backyard on Glenroy Street, Irene taught me how to blow bubbles, red rainbow prisms lifting into the air, If you were good at it, and she was, you'd create a bubble, birth it into the close, warm summer air, and then catch it, letting it land on the red plastic wand, a summer bubble nesting until it burst, the surface tension giving way to Labor Day. As September shifted into October, the nuns would assign leaf collecting school projects, and Irene would load the three of us, my brother, sister, and me, and whatever dog was taking up residence, for a trip to South Park, a county recreation area a few miles from our house. We'd park the car in some dirt pull off beside a picnic shelter and wander under oak and maple trees, searching for that perfectly fresh fallen leaf, red and yellow orange, still supple as green chlorophyll disappeared with the shortened daylight. We'd press the leaves between squares of wax paper under a hand towel and hot iron and label each artifact with a number 2 pencil, identifying the mother tree. We all come from something, from somewhere, maybe from someone or God. Long, somber months of winter remind me of the red rubber snow boots my mom made me wear, tray unfashionable. I'd sled ride with neighborhood kids down the steep hill in the back of our house, trying to avoid the tool shed, trees, and the dog poop we hadn't picked up like we were told. It was always important to eject from the sled if you'd lost control and were headed into the creek. My brother's birthday and mine disarmed January's bleakness with candles, secret wishes, presents, and chocolate icing. Mom would make chicken and noodles and ladle the juicy mixture into a lap of mashed potatoes. My favorite dinner, hers too. Now, a kick through decaying leaves can stir the musky memory of her. Green shoots of daffodil help me to remember her hands turning dirt and burying bulbs. Suds in the kitchen sink can drip over my hands, and summertime whispers, the green pool, sunshine, my mom's black hair twisted under bobby pins tight against the crown of her head. My birthday is coming. It must be winter. If I close my eyes tight and make a wish, I'll see her again, and winter won't be so cold. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I have the great pleasure of introducing Mr. Niles Reddick. Niles is the author of the Pulitzer-nominated novel, Drifting Too Far from the Shore, 2 collections, Reading the Coffee Grounds, and Roadkill Art and Other Oddities, and a national finalist Foreword Award for the novella, Lead Me Home. Niles' work has been featured in 19 anthologies, 21 countries, and in over 300 publications, including the Saturday Evening Post, PIF, P-I-F, New Reader Magazine, Fourth Magazine, the Citron Review, and the Boston Literary Magazine. Most recently, his story, Rotarian on Vacation, was nominated by Big City Lit for a Pushcart Prize, his 3rd nomination, and his stories, Keeping Time and Did Their Best, were nominated for Best Microfiction Awards. Niles works for the University of Memphis and lives in Jackson, Tennessee, with his wife, Michelle, their daughter, Audrey, son, Nicholas, and 2 schnauzers named for Poet Laureates. And I would like to introduce Niles only if he shares with us the names of those schnauzers.
Well, thank you, Vivian. And I hate to follow you tonight. I mean, that was absolutely beautiful. I will say that one of them is the male one is Frost, obviously for Robert Frost. And the other one is for the Tennessee Poet Laureate, Maggie Vaughn. And so Maggie is the other one. And I'm not particularly a big, huge, they're the kids' dogs. They're not my dogs. I hope they take them with them when they move out.
Is the second dog's full name Maggie Vaughn?
Yeah, we call her Maggie Vaughn. Sometimes we just call her Maggie. I call her a lot of things. I want to do 2 flash pieces. They're both about 700 words. And, you know, if it gets close, I could just make it 1. The first one, I think, is a little more serious. I will tell you that, you know, when you write something, and you all know this, different things inspire us. And I really don't know what inspired this piece. I was thinking about family, and uncle died last year, not from COVID, but during COVID. And of course, there was no service, there was no anything. But this guy was retired. He was disabled, and you know, I'm certainly not the best religious person in the world, but this uncle, he was really religious, and he prayed for everybody in the family. And trust me, most of my family needs all the prayers they can get. But I thought, you know, about him, and I thought, you know, who's going to pray for me now? And so the title of the story is who's going to pray for me now? I love this title. I love this story. It may be my favorite story I've ever written. I sent it out. Within just 3 days, it was picked up by a magazine called Anti-Heroin Chic. I don't know if you're familiar with that magazine or not, but it's they've got some pretty, it's hard to get into this one. And so I've tried to get into it before and never have gotten into this one. But I knew when I sent it to them, they would take it. I just knew it. It felt right. It's a good story. I love it. So I'm going to read this one. Who's going to pray for me now? The deputy who called shared, you'd gone to the restroom to pee, that your jeans had fallen to your knees, that your arm and hand were outstretched and propped on the wall, a brace that didn't hold, unlike the spec homes you'd built for habitat after hurricanes along the Gulf. They said you couldn't go because your kidneys had stopped functioning and filtering, and within a short time, your heart stopped and you were gone. I wondered if that's what death was like, an incredible urge to pee and the sweet relief of finally going. I imagine you flew through that sheetrock and roof, looked back down on yourself, all humped over with muscle turned to flab, like a cicada shell stuck on a limb of a tree. After I wiped tears, the first thing that came to mind was who's going to pray for me now that you're gone? I remember that long ride to see you in Texas in Daddy's Ford LTD with the pop-up headlights and the fender skirts I thought were so cool and didn't understand why car companies stopped making them, or the white wall tires that were hard to keep white. Daddy made me put white shoe polish on them when we couldn't get all the stains off. I remember Nana trying to act like riding in the back seat didn't bother her. And since she never drove and never trusted Daddy, and certainly didn't trust him after that car was passing others on our side and was headed straight for us, how she kept punching her floorboard with her foot from the back seat to stop. And how Daddy said, if they want to play chicken, I'll show them who the king of the road is. Daddy sped up until he sideswiped them and we landed in a shallow bayou, an alligator swimming close to the front of the car, and Nana out cold because the iron skillet she had to bring because, quote, I ain't gonna scramble no eggs in a newfangled pan Joe bought from the Sears and Roebuck catalog. At first we thought she was dead until we saw the iron skillet had slid off the back window deck and landed on her head. We only stayed a few days because y'all fought when drinking hard liquor. You a Chevy man and Daddy a Ford man who got mad when you said Ford stood for fix or repair daily. And the ride home was miserable because we were crammed into that Japanese compact. But it was the only rental Daddy could afford because his insurance didn't cover rentals. You and Daddy didn't talk much, and you didn't come visit even when Nana died from that brain aneurysm. And you called and said you couldn't believe she was gone, that she was stubborn. Daddy was just like her. And it was her own fault because of that damn skillet she brought to Texas that had knocked her out and later paved the way for her aneurysm. You thought it was ironic that Nana died quickly and at home, since she never got in another vehicle after she got back from Texas, walked to the grocery store and to appointments, and certainly wouldn't have gone to the hospital in an ambulance. I'm happy you quit drinking, got saved, and prayed for me every day. Sometimes I could feel those prayers like a gentle breeze giving me comfort from the blistering heat, the same way you described the breeze when you could still put asphalt shingles on a roof before you slipped, fell, and broke your back and had to take disability. I was happy you prayed for Daddy. And even though he only drinks Schlitz at night when he curses and damns everyone in Washington to hell, he still drinks Crown on the weekends and eats his egg from Nana's skillet with the big spoon because he can't hold them on a fork since he has tremors. I'm praying for him like you prayed for me, but it doesn't seem to take hold, and I'm hoping you find Nana and come for him when he takes his last sip, which may be soon, because if he curses me one more time while I'm over here on the sofa minding my own business, I may take that skillet to his head. So I hope you enjoyed that. It's not true, by the way. The only thing that's true is that my great-grandmother my mother was in a car with my great-grandmother who was in the back seat, and she had her iron skillet. She took it everywhere, and it slid off and hit her in the head when they had the wreck, and they thought she was dead. But now I didn't really have, none of the rest of that's really true, but it sounded good anyway. I was tickled that they took the story. The second one is called Allergic. And after I got my COVID shot, I was thinking I might get sick, but nothing happened except a sore arm. And but everybody that I've talked to has these weird sensations, their nose starts running, or they have earaches, or at least in Tennessee. And it may be just the pollen has finally arrived here and people are beginning to get allergies. But this was inspired actually by a friend of mine whose mother, before she passed away, would go to the library, check out these books and read them. But she had dementia, and so she knew she had dementia, and she couldn't remember which book she had checked out and read. And so she took a pencil and marked every page 65 in every book in the fiction section, the Harlequin fiction section. So she pulled it off the shelf, looked to see if she'd read it, and put it back. And that's how she was able to, and I don't know why you would do that. If you really could remember you had read it, it would be fresh all the time, right? But anyway, so the title of this is called Allergic. It's a new piece and is not published. And so there may be mistakes. The whole family was allergic. Bill was allergic to penicillin and had ballooned up and changed colors after he'd had a shot for a sinus infection. He looked like Violet on Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, who swelled from chewing gum. Fortunately, the clinic's nurse had given him a shot with an EpiPen. Bill's wife, Sarah, was allergic to ants and had stood in a bed of ants while fishing as a child and had to be given multiple Benadryls. She was adamant that they have a bag of ant killer every spring just in case. The first sign of a dirt mound and ants were sent scrambling to neighbors' yards by the poison granules. Their daughter Anne was allergic to wasps, and when early signs of spring, such as buds on dogwood trees and new sprigs of grass, Bill was sure to get the can of Jetstream wasp spray to kill any eggs and nests. Their son Kyle was allergic to onions, liver, and anything else he didn't want to eat that his mom cooked, and he was great at embellishing symptoms, real or imagined. His mom suspected an incarnation of the boy who cried wolf, but she didn't share with Bill and simply pampered Kyle in hopes he'd grow out of it. I believe I'm developing a new Allergy, Sarah said while tossing the decorative throw pillow into the chair in the bedroom, fluffing their pillows and pulling back the comforter. To what? Bill asked. Mom, she said. Don't be silly, he said. You're half her, so you can't be allergic. But when I talk to her, I begin to itch, clear my throat, and get hot flashes. Maybe you're going through the change. Now, you don't be silly. I've had a hysterectomy. Well, maybe you're allergic then. Hell, I don't know. I've got to get up early. Bill pulled back the sheet, eased into bed, made noises, and closed his eyes. Maybe it's because her health is declining and she tells me things I really don't want to hear. The other day, she called and told me she'd lived through gallbladder, hemorrhoid, and carotid artery surgeries and didn't want to have cataract surgery. Said one of her friends told her they take your eyeball out and she's worried they might drop it. I tried to tell her they don't take out the eye, but she didn't believe me. She ought to be worried about her mind if she believes that nonsense. Well, she's worried about her mind too, since we've talked about taking her car. She says she doesn't know how she'll get to the library to get her books. All she does is read Harlequin romance novels all day, sometimes 2 or 3 a day. They're all the same, he said. Fantasies. No relationship works like a Harlequin one. She told me the other day she enjoys her imaginary lovers more than she had enjoyed Dad when he was alive. Now that's just wrong, he said. I don't want to hear about that. She better not let that get back to the women's group at the Methodist church or they'll boot her out. She told me she can't remember which book she's read, so now she's marking every page 65 with a pencil so she can pull them and see if she's read them before she checks them out. Good God, he said, that old librarian will put her in jail for marking all those books. She called me today and read her obituary. What? Does she think she's getting ready to check out? Said she didn't want us to worry about having to write it, but when I suggested some different wording, she told me not to correct her, that she was still my mother and I wasn't too old for some punishment. Sounds like she may be losing it if she thinks she can come over here and whip you. I know, maybe I'm not allergic. Maybe it's just anxiety. Well, go get you some of them melatonin gummies in the pantry and take a handful so you can sleep. Okay, maybe tomorrow will be better. Maybe I'll take her on a picnic. That's a great idea, said Bill and turned on his side. The hair on his back and his misshapen abdomen spread made Sarah think he was a gigantic, grotesque fly like Jeff Goldblum had played in the movie. She suddenly felt allergic to Bill and went to the kitchen for melatonin. She planned to take her mother to the library after the picnic and decided she'd get a Harlequin just for fun. So hope you enjoyed that. It's kind of weird, but so am I.
Well, I don't know if we should end right there.
Else, it was weird in a good way.
Yeah. Thank you.
I loved it. Wow.
Those were fabulous. They were fabulous, Niles. I love the sweet relief of finally going.
Yeah.
That was amazing. And then this guy in bed who's making noises and pollen and the pandemic and allergies of every sort. It's kind of nice to go out on an upbeat, smiling note. So thank you so much for honoring us with your work tonight.
Thank you
everyone for doing the same thing. It was really, really a wonderful night tonight. And Jonathan, I always say, thank you so much for getting us together and getting us, getting those Zoom links out and helping us get in when we can't. And congratulations on the new location of the Pat Conroy Literary Center.
Yes.
Thank you, Vivian.
And
Thank you
happy
so much
birthday,
for hosting
Carl.
tonight. You
Yes.
did a fantastic job hosting, as
Oh,
always.
it was a well, you can't go wrong with this group. So
I
don't know
think
if
it's Jonathan's birthday tomorrow also. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday, dear.
Happy
Happy birthday to you. And many more.
Yes.
Thank you.
Indeed,
I
many
appreciate it.
more.
Oh, great.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good
Thank you,
night.
Vivian.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good
Good
night.
night, everybody. It was so much fun.